Most divorces end in screaming matches or shattered glass. But in the pristine, oak-paneled conference room of a Manhattan high-rise, the silence was more terrifying than any scream. Rowan Vance watched his wife Anna pick up the fountain pen. He expected her hand to shake. He expected begging. Instead, she looked at the document that would strip her of her title, her home, and her status. And she smiled. It wasn't a bitter smile. It was the terrifyingly calm smile of a woman who had already planted the bomb and was just waiting for the timer to hit 0. She signed. 10 minutes later, Rowan wasn't smiling. He was on his knees. The air conditioning in the conference room of Sterling Holloway and Associates was set to a crisp 68 degrees, but Rowan Vance felt a bead of sweat trickle down the back of his neck, soaking into the collar of his bespoke Brioni suit. He told himself it wasn't nervousness. It was anticipation. It was the adrenaline of the kill. Across the mahogany table sat Anna. She was wearing a simple navy dress, one he had bought her 5 years ago, when they were still pretending to be happy. She looked small against the backdrop of the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the grey, churning waters of the Hudson River. "Are we ready to proceed?" Arthur Holloway asked. The senior partner of the firm, Arthur, was a man who charged $1,200 an hour to destroy families. He looked at Rowan with a conspiratorial glint in his eye. They both knew the terms. They were brutal. "I'm waiting on her," Rowan said, his voice smooth, betraying none of the impatience that thumped in his chest. He tapped his gold Rolex on the table. "I have a board meeting at 2, Anna. Let's get this over with. You've read the terms. You get the cottage in Vermont and the Audi. I keep the penthouse, the portfolio, and the majority stake in Vance Logistics. It's exactly what the prenup stipulated." It wasn't, strictly speaking, true. Rowan had leveraged hidden offshore accounts and shell companies to undervalue the marital assets significantly. He was robbing her blind, and he was convinced she was too naive to notice. She had spent the last decade raising their son Leo and hosting charity galas. She didn't know business. She didn't know that Vance Logistics was on the verge of a merger with a German conglomerate that would triple its value overnight. Anna looked up from the papers. Her eyes, usually a warm hazel, looked flat, opaque. "I've read them," she said softly. "Then sign." Rowan pressed, leaning forward. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. If you fight this, I'll drain the bank accounts in legal fees. You'll end up with nothing." It was a bluff he had used for 6 months. The threat of poverty was his favorite weapon. He watched her face for the crack, the quiver of the lip, the tears. But Anna didn't cry. She reached into her purse, a worn leather tote, not the Hermes he used to insist she carry, and pulled out her own pen. It was a cheap plastic thing. "You're sure this is what you want, Rowan?" she asked. Her voice was steady, lacking the hysterical pitch he had described to his friends when painting her as the crazy ex-wife. A clean break. No take-backs. "The moment I sign this, the division of assets is final." "Sign the damn papers, Anna," Rowan snapped, losing his cool for a fraction of a second. "I want you out of my life. I want my company back. I want to be done with you." Anna nodded slowly. She uncapped the pen. Arthur Holloway shifted in his seat. Even he, a shark in a suit, seemed unsettled by her demeanor. Usually the wives fought. Usually they screamed about the mistress, in this case a 24-year-old marketing intern named Jessica, who was currently waiting for Rowan at the Ritz-Carlton. Anna knew about Jessica. She had known for a year, yet she hadn't said a word. Anna lowered the pen to the paper. She didn't hesitate. Her signature was fluid, an elegant script that looked like artwork on the sterile legal document. Anna Marie Vance. She closed the folder and slid it across the mahogany table. "There," she said. "You're a free man, Rowan." Rowan grabbed the folder, checking the signature as if he expected it to disappear in invisible ink. It was there, irrevocable. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. A grin broke across his face, a predatory, triumphant grin. "Finally," he muttered. He looked at Arthur. "File this immediately. I want the decree absolute by the end of the week." "Consider it done," Arthur said, gathering the files. Rowan stood up, buttoning his jacket. He felt 10 pounds lighter. He was free. He was rich, and he had managed to cut Anna out of the merger deal of the century. "You can keep the pen," Rowan said dismissively to Anna, who was still sitting, her hands folded calmly in her lap. "Buy yourself something nice. Oh wait, you can't afford it." He laughed, a short barking sound. He turned on his heel and walked toward the heavy oak doors. "Rowan," Anna called out. He paused, hand on the brass handle, and looked back over his shoulder. Anna was smiling. It wasn't a sad smile. It was a cold, sharp expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Check your email," she said. "What? I sent you a notification. Since we are now legally separated and the asset division is signed, I thought you should know." "Know what?" Rowan scoffed. "That you're begging for more alimony." "No," Anna said, standing up. She smoothed her skirt. "Check the email from the Securities and Exchange Commission and the one from the Board of Directors at Vance Logistics." Rowan frowned. A prickle of unease crawled up his spine. He pulled his phone from his pocket. "Goodbye, Rowan," Anna said. She walked past him, the scent of her perfume lavender and old paper wafting by. She exited the room, leaving him standing there with his phone in his hand. He looked down at the screen. Subject: notice of immediate suspension and investigation. His heart stopped. The hallway of the law firm was lined with portraits of old white men who looked like they judged you for breathing. Rowan stared at his phone screen, his vision blurring. He blinked, trying to make the words make sense. The email wasn't from a spam bot. It was from the official internal server of Vance Logistics, CC'd to the entire board, the legal department, and crucially the SEC Enforcement Division. "Dear Mr. Vance, effective immediately, your authority as CEO of Vance Logistics is suspended pending an internal audit regarding the misappropriation of company funds, insider trading, and the falsification of revenue reports for the fiscal year 2024. "What the hell?" Rowan whispered. His thumb scrolled down frantically. Attached to the email was a dossier, a PDF titled Evidence Summary, Vance.pdf. He opened it. His knees almost buckled. It was everything. It was the Cayman Island transfers he had made to hide assets from Anna. It was the shell company Nebula Holdings he had used to funnel cash to buy the apartment for Jessica. It was the doctored shipping manifests he had used to inflate the stock price ahead of the German merger. Every single dirty secret he had buried deep in the digital ledgers was there, highlighted, indexed, and time-stamped. "Arthur!" Rowan roared, spinning around and bursting back into the conference room. Arthur Halloway looked up, startled. He was just putting the signed divorce papers into his briefcase. "Rowan, what is it, you're pale?" "She knew," Rowan gasped, holding up the phone. "She knew everything." "Who, Anna?" Arthur scoffed. "Rowan Anna barely knows how to use Excel. She's a housewife." "Look at this." Rowan shoved the phone into Arthur's face. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. He read the subject line. He read the first paragraph. His face went from flushed to an ashy grey. This is bad, Rowan. This is federal. I know it's bad, Rowan screamed. How did she get this? These are encrypted files. These are from the private server in my home office. And then the realization hit him like a physical blow to the stomach. His home office. For the last 6 months while he was out working late, sleeping with Jessica Arner, had been at home. He had treated her like furniture. He had assumed she was weeping into her pillows or watching soap operas. He had left his laptop on the desk, secure in the arrogance that his password, Vance Empire, was uncrackable, or that she simply wouldn't care to look. The divorce papers, Rowan stammered. He looked at Arthur's briefcase. The asset division. What did I just sign? Arthur looked confused. You signed the agreement we drafted. You keep the company assets. She gets the liquid cash from the joint account and the Vermont property. No, Rowan said, his voice trembling. If the company is under SEC investigation for fraud, the stock, it will tank, Arthur whispered, the horror dawning on him. If this news hits the wire. Rowan's phone buzzed. It was a notification from Bloomberg. Breaking Vance Logistics CEO suspended amidst massive fraud allegations. Stock plunges 40% in pre-market trading. 40%, Rowan wheezed. That's millions. I leveraged my personal portfolio against the stock value to buy out the partners last month. Rowan, Arthur said, his voice taking on a very professional, very distant tone. If you knowingly signed a divorce settlement assigning you assets that you knew were artificially inflated due to fraud, and you hid that fraud, I didn't hide it from her. She clearly knew. But you signed a warranty in the settlement, Arthur pointed out, tapping the folder. Section 12, paragraph B. Both parties attest that all financial disclosures are accurate. If you committed fraud to inflate the value, and now the value is 0, you still owe her the payout based on the valuation at the time of signing. Rowan stared at him. The room began to spin. The agreement stated he had to buy out Arna's share of the marital estate. Since he insisted on keeping the company valued at $50 million yesterday, he had to pay her a lump sum of $5 million cash from the joint reserves plus alimony. But today, the company was worth nothing. Actually less than nothing. It was a liability. A radioactive crater of lawsuits and debt. He had just fought tooth and nail to keep a burning building, and he had agreed to pay Arna $5 million for the privilege of burning inside it. Call her, Rowan choked out. Call her back. Tell her I withdraw. Tell her I want to renegotiate. I can't, Arthur said, closing his briefcase. She signed. You signed. It's done. It's a binding contract. She set me up, Rowan yelled, grabbing a crystal pitcher of water from the table and hurling it against the wall. It shattered, soaking the expensive silk wallpaper. She waited until I signed to release the evidence. Actually, a calm voice came from the doorway. Rowan spun around. Arna hadn't left the building. She was standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame. She had put on a pair of oversized sunglasses, looking like a movie star from a 1950s noir film. I didn't release it, Rowan, Arna said. I scheduled it. I set the email to go out to the board and the SEC exactly 10 minutes after our appointment time. If you had hesitated, if you had shown a single ounce of humanity or fairness during the negotiation, I might have cancelled the send. She walked into the room, the glass crunching under her heels. But you didn't, she continued, her voice devoid of pity. You mocked me. You threatened to leave me penniless. You tried to hide the Cayman accounts, which, by the way, the IRS now knows about, too. Rowan fell back into his chair. His legs wouldn't hold him. He looked at this woman he had been married to for 12 years. This woman he had ignored, cheated on, and belittled. He realized he had never really known her at all. "You're going to jail, Rowan," she said simply. "And thanks to the papers you just signed, the $5 million in the joint account is mine. Safe from your creditors, safe from the SEC fines." "Anna, please," Rowan whispered. Tears, hot, angry, terrified tears welled up in his eyes. The arrogance was gone, stripped away, in 10 minutes. "We have a son. Think of Leo. Don't destroy his father." "I am thinking of Leo," Anna said. "That's why I'm taking the money and the house in Vermont. I'm ensuring he has a future that isn't tied to a fraudster." She turned to the lawyer. "Arthur, send the certified copy to my attorney. I believe we're done here." Anna turned and walked away. Rowan sat in the silence of the room. He put his head in his hands. The tears finally spilled over, dripping onto the polished mahogany table, right onto the spot where he had signed his life away. But the story didn't end there. Rowan Vance was a cornered animal, and cornered animals bite. He wasn't going to go down without a fight. And Anna had one loose end she hadn't accounted for, Jessica the mistress, who knew more about the accidental fire at the warehouse 3 years ago than anyone else. The war had just begun. To understand how a woman like Anna Vance, soft-spoken, PTA-attending flower-arranging Arna, became the executioner of her husband's empire, you have to go back 6 months. You have to go back to the night of their 12th anniversary. It was a Tuesday. Arna had cooked osso buco, Rowan's favorite. She had opened a bottle of 1996 Barolo. The candles had burned down to nubs by the time the grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight. Rowan didn't come home. He didn't call. He didn't text. When he finally stumbled through the door at 2:00 a.m., smelling of gin and a perfume that was sweeter and cheaper than anything Anna wore, he didn't apologize. He just tossed his jacket on the floor and muttered about late negotiations with the Germans. Anna picked up the jacket to hang it up. That was her habit. Order in the chaos. As she smoothed the wool, a phone slid out of the inside pocket. It wasn't his sleek black iPhone. It was a burner, a cheap prepaid flip phone. Rowan was already snoring in the master bedroom. Anna stood in the foyer, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She knew she shouldn't look. Looking made it real. Looking turned suspicion into a tragedy. She opened the phone. There was no passcode. The text messages were a catalogue of humiliation. "Can't wait for you to leave the old ball and chain. The penthouse looks amazing. When do I get the keys? Love you, Daddy." The sender was listed simply as J. Anna sank onto the stairs, the cold marble seeping through her dress. She cried for an hour. She cried for the wasted years, for the boy who was sleeping upstairs, unaware his family was broken, and for her own foolishness. But at 3:30 a.m., the tears stopped. A cold numbness took over. It was a familiar feeling, one she hadn't felt since her 20s. Rowan had forgotten who he married. He saw her as the mother of his child, a decorative accessory to his life. He had conveniently forgotten that before she was Anna Vance, socialite, she was Anna Rostova, a scholarship student at Wharton who graduated summa cum laude with a degree in forensic accounting. She had given up her career at Deloitte to support Rowan's startup ambitions to raise Leo to be the good wife. She hadn't lost the skills. She had just put them in storage. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she went to Rowan's home office. She didn't need to guess his password. She knew he used Vance Empire Woman because narcissists rarely change their patterns. She logged in. She didn't look for love letters. She looked for the money. If Rowan was planning to leave her, which the text suggested he would be hiding assets, she knew how he thought. He would try to starve her out. She opened the digital ledgers for Vance Logistics. To the untrained eye, they were perfect, clean, profitable. But Anna wasn't an untrained eye. She was a hunter, looking for a disturbance in the brush. She found it in the shipping manifests. Container 404B. Origin Hamburg. Contents industrial machinery. Declared value $4.5 million. Container 404B. Origin Hamburg. Contents industrial machinery. Declared value $200,000. 2 entries for the same container dated 2 days apart. One was for the tax authorities, low value, and one was for the investors, high value. He was inflating the company's worth to secure loans while simultaneously deflating it to avoid taxes. It was a classic double set of books scheme, but executed with a digital sophistication that suggested he had help. Anna spent the next 3 months living a double life. By day, she was the smiling wife pouring coffee and asking Rowan about his day. By night, she was a ghost in his machine. She downloaded terabytes of data. She mapped out the shell companies. She traced the wire transfers to the Cayman Islands. She found the payments to Jessica Miller, marketing intern, 24 years old. The payments weren't just for rent. There were payments listed as consulting fees paid to a company registered in Jessica's name. Huge sums. 50,000 here, 100,000 there. Why was Rowan paying an intern that much money? It wasn't just for sex. Rowan was cheap. He wouldn't pay a premium for an affair he could get for a diamond bracelet. Anna dug deeper. She found an email thread between Rowan and Jessica dated 3 years prior. Subject: the warehouse issue. From Rowan to Jessica. It needs to be done tonight. The insurance policy expires on Tuesday. Make sure the inventory is cleared before the spark. Anna's blood ran cold. 3 years ago, the Vance Logistics warehouse in New Jersey had burned to the ground. It was ruled an electrical fault. The insurance payout had been $12 million money that saved the company from bankruptcy during the recession. But the email proved it wasn't an accident. It was arson. And Jessica wasn't just a mistress. She was an accomplice. Anna sat back in the leather chair, the glow of the monitor illuminating her pale face. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was a crime scene. If she simply divorced him, he would hide the money, fight her for custody of Leo, and probably win because he had the high-priced lawyers. But if she destroyed him, if she waited until he thought he had won. She looked at the sleeping form of her husband on the baby monitor camera. "You wanted a war, Rowan," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm going to give you a nuclear winter." That was the moment the naive wife died. That was the moment she decided to sign the papers with a smile. The rain in New York City was relentless, a grey curtain that washed the grime off the sidewalks, but couldn't touch the filth in Rowan Vance's soul. Rowan sat in the back of his chauffeured Mercedes, but he wasn't going to the office. The office was a crime scene, now swarming with SEC agents. He wasn't going to the penthouse. Anna was there packing or perhaps changing the locks. He gave the driver an address in the East Village, a trendy, expensive loft building with a doorman who knew not to ask questions. He buzzed up to 4B. Jessica opened the door. She was wearing a silk robe he had paid for, holding a glass of wine he had paid for. She looked beautiful in a vapid, sharp-edged way, but the moment she saw his face, her expression curdled. "Rowan, why are you here? You said we had to be careful until the divorce was finalized." "It's finalized." Rowan pushed past her, entering the apartment. It smelled of vanilla candles and expensive marijuana. "And it's over. Everything is over." "What do you mean?" Jessica closed the door, her voice rising. "Did she refuse to sign?" "She signed." Rowan paced the living room, running his hands through his thinning hair. "And then she nuked me. She sent everything to the SEC Jessica, the double books, the Cayman accounts, the insider trading." Jessica dropped her wine glass. It shattered on the hardwood floor, red liquid splashing onto the white rug like blood. "Everything," she whispered. "Everything. Does she know about New Jersey?" The room went dead silent. The New Jersey warehouse fire. The skeleton in their closet that rattled the loudest. "I don't know," Rowan said, stopping his pacing. He turned to look at her. "The file she sent was huge. I didn't see the arson evidence in the summary. But if she has access to my emails, if they find out about the fire, Rowan, that's not just fraud." Jessica's voice trembled, shifting into a screech. "That's 20 years. That's a felony arson charge. And the night watchman, he got hurt. Remember, he was in the hospital for weeks. That makes it aggravated." "I know," Rowan roared. "Shut up, I'm thinking He went to the window and looked out at the rain-slicked fire escape. He was ruined financially. His reputation was ash. But prison, Rowan Vance did not go to prison. Prison was for poor people. "She has the leverage," Rowan muttered. "She has the evidence, but evidence can be manipulated. Narratives can be changed." He turned back to Jessica. His eyes were full bloodshot and dangerous. "Where is the laptop?" he asked. "The one you used to coordinate the cleaning crew for the warehouse." "It's in the safe," Jessica said, hugging herself. "I kept it, just in case." "Just in case." "What you wanted to blackmail me." "Insurance. Rowan. Same as you." "Get it," he commanded. Jessica scrambled to the bedroom and returned with a silver MacBook. Rowan opened it. "We have one card left to play. Anna is smart, but she's arrogant now. She thinks she's won. She thinks she's safe. What are you going to do?" "Anna was the accountant," Rowan said, a twisted plan forming in his mind. "She has the degree. She did the books for the charity galas. If I can prove that she was the one cooking the books, that she was the one who set up the shell companies without my knowledge." "But the emails are from you," Jessica pointed out. "Emails can be spoofed," Rowan said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "I still have administrative access to the server for maybe another hour before the IT department locks me out. I can plant a trail. I can make it look like she hacked my account months ago and has been planting false evidence to frame me because she's a bitter, scorned woman." "Will the FBI believe that?" "They might not," Rowan said, his voice dropping to a sinister whisper. "But if we give them something bigger, something worse." He looked at Jessica. "The warehouse fire. We pin it on her. How she was at a PTA meeting that night. We plant the burner phone," Rowan said. "The one you used to call the guys who set the fire. You still have it?" Jessica nodded slowly. "In the safe. We plant it in her car, or her bag. We wipe your prints, put hers on it. Then I go to the police. I tell them my wife has been acting erratic, that she threatened to burn down the company if I left her. I tell them I found this phone. It was a desperate, evil plan. It relied on chaos and the misogynistic trope of the crazy ex-wife. But Rowan was desperate. If he could cast doubt on her credibility, if he could make her a suspect, the SEC evidence she submitted would be tainted. It would look like a setup. "We have to do it now," Rowan said. "She's at the penthouse. She'll be moving out soon. We need to get that phone into her possession tonight." "I can't go there," Jessica said. "She knows me." "No." Rowan grinned, but there was no humor in it. "I'll go. I'll go to beg for forgiveness. I'll go to see my son. And while I'm there, I'll drop the phone in her purse." He grabbed his coat. "Clean this up." He gestured to the wine. "And delete everything on this laptop. Then drill a hole through the hard drive and throw it in the East River." Rowan Vance walked out into the rain. He was going to war. He was going to look his wife in the eye, beg for mercy, and then frame her for a felony that would put her behind bars for the rest of her life. He didn't know that Anna was already 3 steps ahead. He didn't know that the burner phone strategy was exactly what she was counting on. Because Anna hadn't just read the emails, she had been recording the audio in the apartment for the last 6 months. And right now, a tiny voice-activated recorder taped to the underside of Jessica's coffee table was capturing every word of their conspiracy. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and the trap was set. The penthouse at the Obsidian on 57th Street was a monument to Rowan's ego-glass walls, Italian marble floors, and a view of Central Park that cost more than most people earned in 10 lifetimes. Now it felt like a mausoleum. Rowan rode the private elevator up his heart, pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. In his pocket, the burner phone felt heavy like a loaded gun. It was the smoking gun that would link Anna to the arson. It had her fingerprints on it, transferred carefully by Jessica using a piece of Scotch tape and a wine glass Anna had touched weeks ago. Jessica was surprisingly resourceful when her own freedom was at stake. The elevator doors chimed and slid open. The apartment was filled with boxes. Anna was organized. She wasn't just leaving. She was erasing herself from the premises. "Anna!" Rowan called out, pitching his voice to sound broken, exhausted. She appeared from the hallway leading to Leo's room. She looked impeccable. No red eyes, no trembling hands. She wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater and jeans looking like she was heading to a casual brunch rather than dismantling a dynasty. "You have 5 minutes, Rowan," she said, checking her watch. "The movers are coming at 6. I wanted to see Leo," Rowan said, stepping into the foyer. He spotted her open purse, the worn leather tote she had brought to the lawyer's office, sitting on the console table near the door. "Perfect." "Leo is at my mother's," Anna said, crossing her arms. "I didn't want him to see you like this." "Like what?" "A father." Rowan stepped closer, forcing tears into his eyes. He was a master manipulator. He could cry on command if the deal required it. "Anna, please. I know I messed up. The fraud, the mistress. I was weak. But don't destroy the company. Think of the employees. Think of the legacy." "The legacy is built on lies, Rowan," she said, her voice cool and detached. "You didn't build that company. You inflated it. You stole from it." "We can fix it," Rowan pleaded, moving towards her, ensuring his path took him right past the console table. "I can pay the fines. I can settle with the SEC. But if you testify, if you give them more—" He reached out to grab her hand. Anna flinched back, disgust flashing across her face. "Don't touch me. I just want my family back." Rowan sobbed, dropping to his knees. It was a pathetic, Oscar-worthy performance. As he fell, he flailed his arm out as if to steady himself, his hand brushing against her open tote bag. In a split second, with the sleight of hand of a magician, he dropped the burner phone into the side pocket of her bag. It was done. "Please, Anna," he wept, looking up at her. "Get up, Rowan," she said, looking down at him with an expression he couldn't quite place. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pity. It was disappointment. "You're embarrassing yourself." Rowan stood up, wiping his face. He sniffled, playing the defeated man to the end. "Fine," he whispered. "I'll go. If you won't help me, I have to go face the music." "Yes," Anna said. "You do." Rowan turned and walked to the elevator. He pressed the button. As the doors closed, he caught one last glimpse of Anna standing amidst the boxes. She hadn't moved. She was just watching him. The moment the doors shut, Rowan's face transformed. The sadness vanished, replaced by a sneer of triumph. He pulled out his main cell phone. He dialed 911. "Emergency, what is your location?" "I'm at 15 Central Park West," Rowan said, his voice trembling with fake panic. "My name is Rowan Vance. I need police immediately. I just found evidence. My wife. She's been threatening to burn down my building. I think she has a bomb or an incendiary device. She has the phone she used to trigger the warehouse fire 3 years ago. She's crazy. She said she's going to do it again. Sir, are you safe?" "I'm in the elevator. Please hurry. She's unstable." Rowan hung up. The trap was sprung. The police would arrive. They would search her bag. They would find the phone linked to the arsonists. The narrative would flip. Vance, CEO victim of vengeful arsonist wife. It would muddy the waters enough to get his lawyers to freeze the assets, and maybe, just maybe, get the SEC evidence thrown out as tampered fruit of a poisonous tree. He walked out of the lobby and waited on the sidewalk, watching the rain counting down the seconds until the sirens started. He didn't have to wait long. 3 NYPD cruisers screeched to a halt in front of the building, blue and red lights fracturing the gloom of the rainy afternoon. 2 minutes later, a black unmarked sedan arrived. Out stepped Detective Ray Thorne. Thorne was a legend in the Financial Crimes Division, a man with a reputation for being unbribable and utterly humorless. He wore a trench coat that had seen better days and chewed on a toothpick. Rowan ran up to him. "Detective. Thank God. She's upstairs. Penthouse A." "Mr. Vance?" Thorne asked, looking him up and down. "Yes. She's in there packing. The phone, the trigger device, it's in her bag. She showed it to me. She said, 'This is how I burned your warehouse, and this is how I'll burn you.'" "All right, Mr. Vance. Calm down," Thorne said. He signaled to 2 uniformed officers. "Let's go up. You stay here." "No, I'm coming," Rowan insisted. "I need to make sure my son isn't there." Thorne shrugged. "Fine. Keep your mouth shut and stay behind. And me." They rode the elevator up. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Rowan was practically vibrating with adrenaline. This was it. The turn. The doors opened. Anna was still standing in the foyer, but she wasn't alone. Sitting on a packing crate, sipping a cup of espresso, was a man Rowan recognized instantly. He wasn't a cop. He was Julian the Hawk Sterling. Julian Sterling wasn't just a lawyer. He was a crisis management fixer for the elite, but unlike the ones Rowan hired, Sterling only took clients who were innocent. If Sterling was in the room, it meant you were in trouble. "Detective Thorne," Anna said calmly. "I've been expecting you." "Mrs. Vance," Thorne said, stepping into the room. "We received a call about a threat to life and property. Your husband claims you are in possession of an incendiary device and evidence related to the 2021 New Jersey warehouse fire." "That's a lie," Rowan shouted from the hallway. "She's crazy. Search her bag, that brown one, right there." He pointed a shaking finger at the tote bag on the console. Anna looked at the bag. Then she looked at Rowan. A small, sad smile played on her lips. "He means this bag?" Anna asked, picking it up. "Don't touch it," Rowan screamed. "She's trying to hide it. Mrs. Vance, please put the bag down." Thorne ordered, his hand drifting toward his holster. "Actually, Detective," Julian Sterling interjected, standing up. He had a voice like smooth gravel. "Before you search that bag, you should know that Mrs. Vance has been cooperating with the FBI for the last 4 months. Every item in this apartment has been catalogued." "She has the phone," Rowan yelled, sweat pouring down his face. "Check the side pocket." Thorne stepped forward, put on a glove, and took the bag. He reached into the side pocket. He pulled out a black flip phone. Rowan let out a breath of relief. "There, I told you that's the phone used to coordinate the arson run, the numbers. It calls the arsonist." Thorne looked at the phone. Then he looked at Rowan. "Mr. Vance," Thorne said, "this phone is in a Faraday bag." Rowan froze. "What?" Thorne held up the phone. It was indeed inside a clear radio frequency shielding bag, the kind police use to prevent evidence from being remotely wiped. "How?" Rowan stammered. I dropped." "You dropped it in there 5 minutes ago," Anna said softly. "But you didn't know that Julian and I were watching on the hidden camera in the foyer." She pointed to a tiny lens concealed in the motion sensor of the alarm system. "And," Julian added, "you didn't know that we already have the original phone." Julian reached into his briefcase and pulled out an evidence bag containing a silver MacBook and a different phone. "This is Jessica Miller's laptop," Julian said, "and her personal phone. She surrendered them to my private investigator an hour ago." Rowan felt the room spin. "Jessica, no. She's at her apartment. Jessica is in protective custody," Thorne said, his voice hard. "We picked her up the moment you left her building. She rolled on you, Rowan. Gave us everything, the arson, the insurance fraud, and the plan you two hatched 40 minutes ago to plant this phone on your wife." Rowan backed away, hitting the wall. "No, She's lying. She's the arsonist. I had nothing to do with it." "We have the audio, Rowan," Anna said. She pulled her own phone from her pocket and pressed a button. Rowan's own voice filled the room, tinny but unmistakable. "We plant the burner phone. We wipe your prints, put hers on it. I tell them my wife has been acting erratic." The silence that followed was absolute. Rowan looked at Anna. For the first time he saw her, not the accessory, not the housewife. He saw the Wharton graduate. He saw the mother protecting her cub. He saw the woman who had spent 6 months patiently building a cage around him, bar by invisible bar. "You," Rowan whispered. "You set me up." "I didn't set you up, Rowan," Anna said, her voice trembling slightly now, the adrenaline finally fading, to leave just the sorrow. "I just gave you the rope. You're the one who tied the noose." Detective Thorne pulled out his handcuffs. "Rowan Vance." He intoned the words, ringing off the marble floors. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit arson, insurance fraud, securities, fraud, and filing a false police report. Turn around and place your hands behind your back." Rowan didn't fight. He couldn't. His legs gave out. The officers had to drag him upright to cuff him. As they marched him out of the penthouse past the boxes of his former life, he looked back at Anna one last time. "Why?" he croaked. "Why didn't you just divorce me? Why did you have to ruin me?" Anna looked him in the eye. "Because you were going to take my son's future to pay for your mistress's condo," she said. "And because you mistook my silence for weakness. Goodbye, Rowan." The elevator doors closed on Rowan Vance for the last time. Anna stood alone in the foyer. Julian Sterling walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's over, Anna. He's gone." Anna took a deep breath. She didn't feel happy. She didn't feel triumphant. She just felt clean. "Not quite," she said, looking at the window where the rain was finally stopping. "I still have one more meeting." "With who?" Julian asked. "The board of directors," Anna said, straightening her sweater. "They think the company is dead. I have a plan to save it. But this time it's going to be run honestly." She picked up her bag, the one that had almost been her undoing, and walked toward the door. She had a company to rebuild and a life to start living. The United States District Court, Southern District of New York. 6 months later. The courtroom smelled of wet wool floor wax and the palpable electric tension of a life about to be dismantled. It was the trial of the decade. The media had dubbed Rowan Vance the wolf of logistics, but sitting at the defense table, he looked less like a wolf and more like a cornered rat. Anna sat in the back row, her hands folded over her purse, the same leather tote that had carried the evidence which destroyed him. Beside her sat Julian Sterling. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. The silence between them was comfortable, built on a foundation of shared victory. The prosecution had been ruthless. They hadn't just used the digital evidence Anna provided. They had paraded a string of witnesses that painted Rowan not as a business genius, but as a petty tyrant. The most damning testimony had come from Jessica Miller. To save her own skin, the former mistress had detailed every illegal wire transfer, every falsified manifest, and crucially the night she helped coordinate the arson in New Jersey. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Arlene Weiss asked. Her voice cut through the murmur of the gallery like a gavel strike. "We have, Your Honor," the jury foreman announced, standing up. He refused to look at Rowan. Rowan gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. He was still wearing his custom Italian suit, but it hung loosely on his frame. Stress had carved deep ravines into his face. He had spent the last 6 months on bail trapped in a hotel room, watching his friends abandon him and his bank accounts freeze. He had expected a miracle. He had expected his high-priced defense team to find a loophole. "On count 1, conspiracy to commit wire fraud," the foreman read, "we find the defendant Rowan Vance guilty." Rowan flinched as if struck physically. "On count 2, securities fraud. Guilty. On count 3, arson in the 2nd degree. Guilty." The word rang out 14 times. Guilty. 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 Rowan turned to his lead attorney, whispering frantically, "Do something, object. This is a mistrial." The attorney simply closed his briefcase. "It's over, Rowan. Sit down." Judge Weiss adjusted her glasses and looked down at the man who had once graced the cover of Forbes. "Mr. Vance," she began, her tone withering. "You were given every advantage in life. Education, wealth, opportunity. Instead of building something of value, you chose to steal. You burned down your own warehouse to claim insurance money, risking the lives of firefighters and your own employees. You defrauded investors of millions. You attempted to frame your own wife, the mother of your child, for your crimes. The courtroom went deadly silent. White-collar crime is often treated with kid gloves, Judge Weiss continued. Not today. I am sentencing you to 25 years in a federal correctional facility. You will not be eligible for parole for 20 years. Furthermore, I am ordering full restitution of $45 million to be paid to the victims, starting with the liquidation of your personal assets. The gavel came down with a sound of finality that echoed in Anna's bones. Marshals moved in immediately. They didn't ask Rowan to stand. They hauled him up. As they clicked the handcuffs onto his wrists, cheap steel cuffs that scratched his expensive watch, Rowan panicked. The reality of 20 years in a concrete box crashed down on him. He spun around, searching the crowd, his eyes wild and desperate. He found Anna. "Anna!" he screamed, his voice cracking, stripping away the last veneer of his dignity. "Anna, tell them I did it for us. I did it for the family. Don't let them take me." Anna stood up. She looked at the man she had married, the man she had feared, the man she had served. She felt nothing. The fear was gone. The anger had burned itself out. All that was left was pity for a man who had everything and threw it away for more. She didn't speak. She simply turned her back on him and walked out of the courtroom doors, the sound of his sobbing fading behind her. Vance Logistics. Headquarters. Now. Vantage Global 3 months later. The boardroom was different. The heavy, intimidating oil paintings of old men were gone, replaced by modern art and open windows that let the sunlight stream in. Anna sat at the head of the table. She wasn't the CEO. She had hired a brilliant logistics veteran named David Chen for that role. But as the majority shareholder and chief financial officer, she was the moral compass of the company. Around the table sat the remaining board members. These were the men who had once ignored her at company parties, asking her only about flower arrangements or her son's school grades. Now they looked at her with a mix of awe and terror. "The audit is complete," Anna said, sliding a thick report across the table. "We've located the missing pension funds. Rowan had hidden them in a shell company in Panama. We've repatriated the money." A collective sigh of relief went around the room. "That saves us from bankruptcy," Arthur Halloway said, wiping his forehead. "Anna, I have to say, I didn't think it was possible. We thought the company was dead." "The company was sick," Anna corrected him, her voice firm. "It was infected with greed. We've cut out the cancer. Now we rebuild. But we rebuild the right way. No more double books, no more phantom shipments. Transparency is our new currency." She stood up. "I've approved the rebranding. Effective tomorrow, we are Vantage Global Solutions. We are starting a scholarship fund for the families of the workers who were affected by the warehouse fire. We are going to make it right." As she left the meeting, her assistant, a bright young woman named Sarah, caught up with her. "Ms. Vance, there's a call for you. It's from the penitentiary. An inmate named Rowan Vance is requesting a visitation." Anna stopped. She looked out the window at the Hudson River, the same view she had stared at the day she signed the divorce papers. She remembered the fear she felt that day. She remembered how small she had felt. "Tell them I'm busy," Anna said softly. "For how long?" Sarah asked. "Forever," Anna replied. "Block the number, Sarah. He belongs to the past. We're working on the future." Stowe, Vermont. 1 year later. The autumn in Vermont was a riot of color. The sugar maples were burning red and orange, setting the hills on fire with their beauty. Anna sat on the wraparound porch of the farmhouse, a mug of hot cider in her hands. The air was crisp, smelling of wood smoke and fallen leaves. It was a world away from the sterile air conditioning of Manhattan high-rises. In the distance down by the creek, she could see Leo. He was 13 now, taller, his shoulders broadening. He was throwing a frisbee for Justice, their golden retriever, laughing as the dog splashed into the water. For a long time, Leo had nightmares. He had missed his father. But Anna had been patient. She had been honest with him without being cruel. She explained that his father had done bad things and had to pay for them, but that he still loved Leo. It was a kindness Rowan didn't deserve, but Anna did it for her son. A car pulled up the long gravel driveway. A silver sedan. Julian Sterling stepped out. He wasn't wearing a suit today. He was in jeans and a flannel shirt, carrying a box of pastries from the city. "I come bearing gifts," Julian called out, smiling as he walked up the steps. "Fresh rugelach from Zabar's. You're a lifesaver." Anna laughed, setting her mug down. Julian sat in the rocking chair beside her. Over the last year, their relationship had shifted. The billable hours had stopped and a genuine friendship had bloomed. Perhaps in time it would be something more. But for now, the peace was enough. "I saw the quarterly reports for Vantage," Julian said, taking a bite of a cookie. "Stock is up 12%. You're the darling of Wall Street again. They're calling you the Iron Lady of Logistics." "Let them call me whatever they want," Anna said, looking back at her son. "As long as I can sleep at night. As long as I don't have to look over my shoulder." "You don't," Julian said quietly. "You won, Anna. You didn't just survive. You thrived." Anna took a deep breath of the cool mountain air. She thought about the woman she used to be, the woman who cooked ossobuco and waited by the door for a husband who didn't care. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew that her value wasn't determined by a ring on her finger, but by the fire in her spirit. She watched Leo run up the hill, waving at them, his face glowing with happiness. "Yes," Anna whispered, a true, genuine smile lighting up her face. "I really did." Anna's journey from a silenced wife to a titan of industry proves one undeniable truth. The most dangerous person in the room is often the one you overlook. Rowan Vance thought his power was absolute. He thought he could discard Anna like an old coat. But he forgot that while he was playing checkers, she had been mastering chess. She didn't just sign a divorce paper. She signed a declaration of independence. She used the very skills he mocked her intelligence, her patience, her attention to detail, to bring down an empire of lies and build a legacy of truth. It makes you wonder how many people are underestimated every day. How many Annas are out there just waiting for the right moment to show their true strength. What do you think? Was the 25-year sentence enough for Rowan? Or did he deserve worse? And would you have visited him in prison? Or did Anna make the right call by cutting him off completely? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this saga of betrayal, justice, and redemption, please smash that like button. It helps us bring more stories like this to you. Subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Next week, we're telling the story of a nanny who inherits a billionaire's estate and the family who will kill to get it back. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.